Here's a number that should keep every government awake at night. Africa's median age is 19 years old, while Europe's is 43 and North America's is 38. An entire continent of 1.4 billion people has a median age of 19. That means more than 60% of Africa is under 25. That's the largest youth population in today's world, concentrated in one place, armed with smartphones and social media. And in the last 18 months, that generation stopped asking for permission. From Kenya to Morocco to Madagascar, governments have been forced to withdraw laws, dissolve cabinets, and face a new reality: the old playbook is dead. This is how Africa's Gen Z is rewriting the rules of revolution. And what's happening right now from Kenya to Morocco is encouraging youth movements worldwide. Welcome to my channel and make sure to subscribe and stay connected. For decades, African politics run on ethnic division. Gen Z grew up differently. The internet erased tribal boundaries. They watched how politician kids lived while youth unemployment hit 40%. They saw the system was not broken, it was designed this way, just not for them. June 2024, Kenya ignites. President William Ruto introduces the Finance Bill 2024, taxes on bread, sanitary pads, mobile money, essentials. Why? To pay back loans corrupt politicians took. It was like a declaration of war on ordinary Kenyans. But here's where the revolution begins. Kenya's Gen Z organizes online with no leaders, just hashtags. Hashtag reject Finance Bill 2024. Hashtag Ruto must go. They create viral infographics explaining the bill's impact. Then they do something revolutionary. They reject the old games entirely. June 18, 2024, protests began. Police fire tear gas, mass arrests, and regardless of this, it escalates. At least 23 people killed, over 300 injured, and finally, the finance bill is withdrawn. A leaderless movement just forced a government to back down. The movement evolves into Gen Zote, meaning all generations. Kenya just taught Africa's youth the most dangerous lesson: governments need you more than you need them. Now watch what happens when you give an entire generation proof that governments can be forced to back down. September 2025, Morocco. Different country, different language, different immediate crisis. Morocco is preparing to host the 2030 FIFA World Cup. The government is pouring millions into new stadiums, tourist infrastructure, projects that look impressive on international TV. Meanwhile, young Moroccans cannot access basic healthcare, public schools are crumbling, youth unemployment is devastating. Morocco's Gen Z decide now it's their turn. Anonymous collective emerge, Gen Z 212 and Morocco Youth Voice. The demands are: fix our healthcare system, fund our education properly, stop building stadiums while our schools fall apart, end the corruption bleeding this country dry. Within days, protests explode across at least 11 cities: Casablanca, Rabat, Marrakesh, Agadir. The Moroccan government responds predictably: mass arrests, nearly 200 people detained, heavy police presence. Every arrest creates 10 more protesters. September 2025, Madagascar. In less than 1 week, a youth-led movement over something as basic as water and electricity brought an entire government to its knees. Madagascar, an island nation of 30 million people in the Indian Ocean, its capital Antananarivo faced a crisis that became the breaking point. Water and electricity cuts, not occasional disruptions, constant ones. For ordinary Malagasy people, this became daily reality. But here's what made the anger explode. While citizens lived in darkness and went thirsty, Madagascar's political elite had backup generators and private water systems. The inequality was not hidden in spreadsheets. This reality, for Madagascar's youth, it became unbearable. The movement had a name that captured everything: Leo de la Stage, Malagasy for fed up with load shedding. It started with social media influencers calling for protests against the water and electricity crisis. Just young Malagasy people organizing online, inspired by what they saw maybe work in Kenya and Nepal. Thursday, September 25, 2025, the first major protests began. Hundreds of mostly young protesters took to the streets of Antananarivo. They targeted the homes of high-profile politicians, making it personal. The government's response was immediate and brutal, of course. Police fired rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse the crowds. Hundreds of mostly young protesters faced off against security forces in Madagascar's capital. More rubber bullets, more tear gas, more violence. The death toll climbed. The injuries mounted, and the government declared a curfew in all major cities, but the protesters continued. By Monday, September 29, President Rajoelina faced a reality no leader wants to admit: he was losing control. The UN reported 22 people killed and more than 100 injured since protests broke out. These were the largest demonstrations Madagascar had seen in years. Finally, the president appeared on national television and dissolved the government, the entire government. Think about what that means. In less than a week, a youth-led movement over water and electricity forced the president to dismantle his entire administration. And the protesters did not stop. Even after the government dissolution, youth-led protests over water and electricity continued. Because dissolving a cabinet is one thing, but fixing the infrastructure crisis and ending corruption, well, that's different. Anti-government protests continued across Madagascar as thousands demanded President Andry Rajoelina step down. Demonstrators staged strikes and marched over misgovernance, water, and power issues. Now, we can't tell this story without acknowledging the price. 22 people are dead, most of them young, most of them protesting for something as basic as running water and electricity, and over 100 injured. International human rights organizations have called for investigations, of course. Amnesty International is demanding accountability for the deadly force used against Gen Z protesters. 60% of Africa's 1.4 billion people are under 25, the largest politically conscious youth population ever, digitally connected, and economically desperate. For the next 30 years, Africa will be the youngest continent. Imagine African governments run by people who demand transparency, reject ethnic politics. Africa will have 2.5 billion people by 2050. Whoever figures out how to govern this generation shapes the next century. Young people worldwide face similar realities: climate crisis, unaffordable housing, unemployment, being called entitled for pointing out the rigged system. From Hong Kong to Chile to Iran to across Africa, Gen Z is reaching the same conclusion. The system is broken and those in charge won't fix it. You might have noticed if enough people say no simultaneously, the system collapses. Kenya proved it, Madagascar proved it. It's like once you know your power, you can't unknow it. Alright, that's it for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment. Can Gen Z transform African politics? Make sure to subscribe so we can do this again, and thanks for watching.